where you are chasing a dream and you finally arrive, and then it's all taken away. Everything changes in a minute. What do you do? How do you change and actually come back stronger and reinvent and build the second half of your life far better than you could hope, dream, or imagine? Today, our guest is Matthew Hatchette, and he told me to call him Hatch. So it is a huge privilege to be with our former NFL star. The whole list is amazing. And I would love for you to share your story and the current season you're in and how you've had this incredible comeback story. So thank you for being our guest today, Hatch.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Definitely, let's not call it a comeback. I have never left. But yeah, again, it's a continuous journey. As a younger person in your teenage years, in your early 20s, you set these goals and, I have to reach this plateau and I have to reach this in my career. And then the older you get, you kind of look back and like, I'm always trying to reach something. I'm never done. The story's never done. The journey's never done. So I'm just continuing on the path that, that I was on before. It just might not be in sports, or it might not be, what it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but the journey I'm finding out never stops. So I'm just look forward to kind of, sharing and trying to motivate it and inspire, if you will, anyone I come in contact with. That's kind of
I love it. Okay, so being a professional NFL football player, that is no small feat. Yeah. How do you go from being a kid with a dream and actually seeing that and playing Major League Football? How did that happen?
By the grace of God, in my personal opinion, I went to a very small Division II school called Langston University in Oklahoma. And I was the first person drafted out of there since 1983, I think it was. Hollywood Henderson for the Dallas Cowboys actually played at Langston, and he got drafted some 25 years before I got drafted. So I always knew I was going to the NFL. I didn't know how. I had no idea how to figure it out. I just knew if I had to wake up tomorrow and do something to put forth the energy and the effort for that specific goal. If I were to do that, then everything else would take care of itself. And it did at the end of the day. But as a, 6-year-old in the driveway playing football with myself and catching the ball and tackling myself, and, the Steelers down by 6 points and Hatchette scores a touchdown, that stuff, that's part of pouring into your dream. As a kid, you don't know that, but the more desire, that focus as a young person and putting those little details out into the world, all that little bit is helping you when, 10 years later, 15, 25 years later down the line. And I think that's what it was. Again, I never took a day off. Like mentally, physically, obviously you did, right? You don't sit and you don't run around the track, around the football field for 365 days. But mentally, I felt like from the ages of 5 or 6, I've never taken a day off of football. There was something that was going to run through my mind, regarding the sport, regarding training, regarding coaching, whatever, something was going to run through my mind. And of course, it all paid off. At the end of the day, I ended up being drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in 1997 at 3:55 p.m. I think it was April 23rd. And I remember it like yesterday, because at the moment when Dennis Green, rest in peace, one of the best coaches I've ever had in my life, called me, he's like, Matthew Hatchette, you want to be a Minnesota Viking? And I said, yes. But when I said yes, like the next 3 to 5 seconds was the moment of, I guess you could say, all of the 5, 6-year-old me up until 22, 23-year-old me, every single workout is just like a flash. And I guess, and then I appear as a Minnesota Viking, but that was the moment, like all that working out and all the focus and all the discipline I had to not, hang out and not do drugs and alcohol, all those things. Like it all came forth in those 3 to 5 seconds. And to me, it was all worth it. And after that, I was just like, okay, I'm now back to reality. Now let's go make myself a professional football player.
Come on.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening right now and they're watching everybody else have fun, they're going out, they're doing whatever they want, and this person is living a disciplined life, whether it's academically or in their career or in sports, training, whatever that field is for them, what would you say as encouragement that right now it looks like everyone else is having way more fun, but your discipline counts?
Stay the course. It matters. Because again, especially with youngsters, especially with the 22 and, before, like maybe 16, 17, it's tough. I get it. Everybody wants to go out and the cool kids are doing this and I remember, the same type of, I guess, same type of doubt, if you will, of am I doing the right thing, right? Am I sacrificing too much? I'm not having fun. So what if I ruin my life and not have fun for 5 years and look back and say it wasn't worth it? It's all worth it. It's worth that moment. It's worth that 3 to 5 seconds. It's worth boss calling you and here's your promotion. It's worth that person saying, here's your degree. It's worth the coach saying, do you want to become a Minnesota Viking? It's all worth it to me. And I remember specifically, I was always the oddball, right? What's wrong with Hatch? Like they call me Rook in college. Like what's wrong? It's different. I was always working out, 10 o'clock at night, I'm on the football field in the rain, running routes with nobody throwing me the ball by myself and everyone else is going out to hang out. And it's, he's weird and he's this and he's that. And then the first time I figured out where I wasn't weird was probably the second day when I was in an NFL locker room and everybody else had the same story. And I was like, this is where all the weirdos hang out. This is where the oddballs hang out. And so once I knew that, I'm like, it was worth it. And so those people that are, going through it, I'm like, you don't fit in because you're fitting out. You'd rather fit out than fit in. Like you can't be great following the crowd. Like that's just one thing I try to tell these kids. And, it's like, everybody's not going to the top. Everybody can't go to the top. Everybody doesn't want to go to the top. You want to be in the top 1% of anything that you want to do. You cannot do what everybody else is doing. You're going to have to sacrifice. And the more you sacrifice, to me, the bigger the reward will be at the end of the day. And you have to believe that wholeheartedly, and you can't waver when it comes to that decision. It can't be like, well, 6 months I do this and 6 months this. No, you have to be willing to do this the rest of your life. You have to be willing to do this for 10 years, maybe 20 years, but the reward will come. And when it does, it's always worth it.
I love it. And so what you're describing on the leadership performance side is intrinsic motivation. So many of us wait for an external coach or boss or someone to tell us when to wake up, when to exercise, when to perform, when to study, when to do that. And we have a society that coddles and affirms this laziness instead of self-autonomy, standing up, doing the right thing because it's the right thing for your goal and your dream, even when everyone else is getting away with slacking or cheating or doing, compromise of things. You're the person that you're going to stare yourself in the mirror. And what do I want at the end of the day? So as a leader, I love how he's describing intrinsic motivation, where you decide your goal, have a vision, write the vision, make it plain, have clarity to what you want, and then reverse engineer to what are the steps that I need to do to get there. Now, not everybody achieves the original goal, but like we'll hear later, there's lots of different trajectories that your life will end up. And how many professional, exceptional people started with sports? I even started with sports, and you don't want me on a field today, but the work ethic of discipline and maturity and having to work harder than everybody else creates a fortitude in you, the substance of character.
Yeah.
And so when you had to practice by yourself, put in the extra hours, and you were considered an oddball, but then you meet your tribe that actually all these one-offs, it's helped you not be surrounded by the crowd because you have that internal grit. And Angela Duckworth and her research on grit is it's not the people that have the most money, the most talent, the most connections and wealth. It's the people that have the internal fortitude to have passion and purpose that they keep persevering toward that one goal. So, there's days that it's a great training day and there's a day where it sucks.
Yeah.
How did you mentally get back up when everything was kind of against you and it just was a tough day or a tough week or month?
Well, again, and to what you just said, I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I don't know what I call it, actually. I don't have a term. You doctors have a term for it. You might let me know what it means. But to me, it's kind of like people sabotage their own life by indulging in satisfaction right now. Like you just like I always use the lunch break example, right? Because everybody, including myself, has had a half-hour break or an hour break.
Sure.
Then an hour comes around and you think that coming up with the best idea ever or the best excuse ever not to go back to work is going to help you in the long run. It doesn't. It's very satisfactory for right now.
Yeah.
And that person saying, you know what? I got here at 9 o'clock. I took lunch at 11. I didn't go back to the office till 2. I'll get off at 4. I won the day. I only worked 4 hours and I was on my break for 3 hours. That helped me in life. Like, no, you're sabotaging your own happiness down the line that you have no idea that when it's going to hit you. And it's going to hit you because you can't cheat that system of faith and you know, I guess the expertise of that top 1%. You're never going to get there if you're doing that. And I just call that the lunch break syndrome. And a lot of people have it. And I hate that people have to do it. But I really feel that like 90% of the world thinks like that. Like, I got a half-hour lunch and I got to sneak 15 more minutes or a half hour. Like, I don't want to be around that type of mentality or that type of thinking in my lifestyle, actually.
Absolutely. And for the most part, this is a gross exaggeration, but for the most part, we can separate people into two categories. There's the employee who pushes the clock and they try to get away with as little effort as possible for the greatest gain. And then there's the entrepreneur, the forerunner, who is like, I'm going to try to put in as much work as possible in as short amount of time as possible so I can get the furthest in the long run. Yeah. So many of us culturally, even with school, the way that everything is lined out, it's very extrinsic. You're learning for a test, you're learning for the approval and the little star on the chart, and you're learning how to work the system, which creates an employee mindset without realizing it. Nothing against employees, but if you want to be the tier one, and if you want to be the forerunner and the disruptive leader in your industry, then it does require developing a new mindset around entrepreneurialism. Not necessarily it has to be in business, but it's those people that take personal responsibility. Yeah. I was just at an Excellent Cultures conference, and it's all these executive CEOs, major bigwigs, and then these 3 senior high school boys that are like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and we're teaching them all our skills. We're like rallying around them. It was so fantastic that these 3 high school guys were like, we are seeing this in our future. And so it's a tension because we want to inspire, but we also want to equip. That you have to put in the work and the diligence, that YouTube and all these people that make tons of money off selling the idea that you're going to work for 3 hours and you're going to have this epic life. That's not real. That's someone selling you and pitching to you. Yeah, not happening. The entrepreneurial space is not a minimal day. It's a maximum day. Stairs only, no elevator. Exactly. Okay, so when you had a down hard hit or whatever, what helped you get back up? So the shorter the time we stay down and the more resilient we are, the more momentum we maintain. What helped you do that? What was the internal game for you? I think at that time of me understanding what being down was, I think it was just a standard in my life. I don't think that being knocked down is a bad thing in any circumstance of life. Again, dead, jail, or hospital, that's down, right? Those are the 3 that are down. Anything besides that, you have a chance, right? So all the, I guess, negative things, I never looked at them as a negative thing. I always looked at it as an opportunity to become something which will make me stronger at the end of the day. And those, I had a speech long time ago that was talked about obstacles or opportunities, right? The hurdle is the thing. Some people look at it as a 10-foot hurdle, as
obstacle. And the same 10-foot hurdle, some people look at it as an opportunity, because only on the other side of that is I made it. You know, and of course, if I made that one, I can make another one. I can make another. So it was kind of the standard I had in my life, that I knew I was always going to get up. I knew I had to always get up. You know, I am my backup. There is no backup. So I always had that going in. So I don't think that anything was going to be able to keep me down, God willing. You know, if he has my back, you know, I'm fine. You know, I've been on my own since I was 12 years old. So I understand that if you are enough for anything, then you are, and I don't need somebody to come pick me up. I don't need, you know, those are the things that I kind of just stand on as a standard for my life.
So he's describing growth mindset versus fixed mindset. When we fall and I'm like, well, F it. Well, the world's against me. It's not going to work out. I fell, whatever. And so we get paralyzed.
Here's, I don't mean to cut you off, but here's the example of that. Before you fall, know that the world is against you.
Perfect. Exactly.
Right? Like, if you already know that going in, they want you to fall. They're gonna, the longer you stay down there, the more dirt they're gonna throw on you, the more they're gonna kick you. That's what's supposed to happen in the world. So you know, as soon as you fall, you better get back up, else they will take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to get over this snowflake mindset where everyone's going to be nice and sing kumbaya. I love military and I love sports. Not that I'm good at them, but I love the concept that, yes, the bad thing is going to happen. How are you gearing up and preparing for it and being ready for those pivots? So like you said, I believe it's from the name of that book is the obstacle is the opportunity. And so I love the mindset around growth opportunity, especially our family's dyslexic. I come from a poor family. Like nobody would ever look at me and be like, she's going to be a clinical psychologist and help leaders optimize their performance.
Facts. I love it.
But I was studying and tutoring, and I was always the one having to work 9 times harder than all my smart peers that had everything handed to them. So for any of us out there that feel like the underdog, decide that yes, there is an obstacle. The world is against you. It's not going to be handed to you. And if you leverage that, that's actually the opportunity to help you work harder. So now you excel and you're ready for when those doors open. So you're at the Vikings, and what's it like? You're donning the outfit. We're out. We're playing. It's a moment that you've waited since you're 6 years old. What was it like in that surreal moment?
I guess there's 2 moments. My rookie year with the Vikings, it hit me. I was like, okay, I'm playing NFL football, right? It's like, of course, the first time you run out of the tunnel onto an NFL field, like that's the moment. I guess if whatever your dream is, like if you want to be a billionaire one day, it's like you just lay there and cash just rains down on your face and you're doing this, right? I don't know, but the feeling was something out of this world, right? It goes and it's 2 seconds and it's gone, right? And then the moment was more reality hit you in the face type of moment. And I remember we had the Hall of Fame game played against the Seattle Seahawks. And I made like a pretty good catch. It was a great catch, I must say. It was a great catch. So it's like a one-handed catch where, I dove for it. It was a 40-yard bomb and puts us, in the field goal range or touchdown range to go into halftime. We're winning the game at halftime. It's just preseason, but still was a big deal. And I remember the Monday's practice after that coming back. So I go talk to the reporter after practice, and they're like, you had a great game Saturday at the Hall of Fame game. Like, how do you feel that your chances are for making the team now? And then before I could say anything, Denny Green was passing by me, just walking to the locker room. And he says, be careful how you answer that. And just that little split second, I heard it. And I was just like, that means that doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's only how good you are tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So that was the eye-opening moment, like over. Like, I got to go perform. Hey, I got to perform tomorrow. I got to perform better every single day. In this type of business, in this type of atmosphere, you can't be good one day. You can't have one good play. You can't have 2 good plays. You have to continually get better, else you will be going. And I think those were 2 uplifting moments in my rookie career that made me understand what the business side of it was. And at the same time, what a blessing I was in by living in the moment of the dream.
That's so good. And I think to your point that many times we arrive and then we rest, whether it's marriage, entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
all areas of life. People think, okay, I've arrived, I can rest now, instead of now it really matters.
Yeah. Do you watch the NFL draft?
No.
Okay. Well, don't feel bad. It's something, again, I'm all for NFL, obviously. I love everything about the NFL, but I hate the NFL draft because they have these kids who are 21, 22 years old, and they get drafted, and they do this red carpet thing and this announcement thing, and all these kids say, I have arrived. You have not done an ounce of work for that. And it's like somebody saying, here's an Oscar for the performance that you have not done yet.
Exactly.
And I think so many of these kids are taking that moment and saying in the NFL, yeah, maybe for a year, maybe for 2 or 3, but in order to really be consistent and have a career and get better and have that drive and hunger and ambition, the 29-year-old who's sitting at home with 3 kids and a wife and, has to support the family, they don't care that you got drafted. You have to come take that person's job. It's like, and I just hate that they give them that moment of I have arrived moment before you've actually arrived. And I think it's just hurting so many of those more than helping the players. Because I think 50 dudes go to the NFL draft now, and some of the kids are just, they know how to handle it mentally. When they fall, they slip in the draft. They don't get drafted where they want to get drafted. But I just think it's hurting a lot of those kids' mentality because they think this is what it's about. And that's not what the NFL is about. It's a straight grind. And you better come to work every single day, else you will be back at home.
So you went from the Vikings to the Jets to the Raiders. Is that right?
Yes, to the Raiders. Yep. Hurt my shoulder after with the Raiders. Ended up sitting out that season. Then I went into NFL Europe for 10 weeks, played in Amsterdam, and then I came back and played with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So how did you stay hungry that long?
I'm still hungry. I never got my dream. Jerry Rice made a statement. He never played the perfect game. Right. Jerry Rice, the best ever, but there's just something internal. I could go have 5 touchdowns in a game. I never did. But if I did, I still be like, I want 6. If I had 150, I wanted 155. I'm going to think about the shot that I missed more than the 20 shots that I made. That's just how I'm built. Again, it's more of a standard and a lifestyle than me having a goal. And I think with goal setting, that's why setting to me can be dangerous. I think people always ask for your 5-year plan. I go, if you have a 5-year plan, you're not really dreaming big enough. You shouldn't be able to see where you're going to be in 5 years. It should be so out of this world. I didn't even see that coming, but I think that the standard was to always get better or be better, never be content. I'm happy with the situation. I'm happy with the team I'm at, but I was never a number 1 receiver in the NFL. Always, I said, played with some Hall of Fame players, Moss, Chris Carter, Tim Brown, Jerry Rice, Jimmy Smith. So I've seen it. I know what it is. I've felt it, touched it, smelled it, and I always thought I could be that, and I became that. So therefore, I was never satisfied. I was never saying I've arrived. I just never got that mindset. And now that I'm overplaying, I never will be in that mindset. But more importantly, I've found out at this age, being in the Hall of Fame of the NFL would be one part of my life, which I'll never make. I've made high school Hall of Fames. I made college Hall of Fames. But to me, it's about being in more of a life Hall of Fame. And to me, I still have an opportunity to do that. So that's what I'm striving for.
I love it. So switching gears, a lot of times people who succeed, everybody's passing you by until you pass them by. And now all of a sudden there's jealousy and comparison, and you're having to work with a team. So whether it's sports or corporate or family or whatever dynamic, how did you navigate working with a team where everybody's got an ego, everybody wants to be the best, and yet somehow still collaborate well?
Blindfolders. I never really seen or felt it. Did I know it's there? Yes. I think that's an external pressure. There's no, I guess, important to me than an internal pressure. So an external pressure or external expectations have never meant anything to me. It was always an expectation and a standard for myself. So again, Randy Moss was a good friend when I was playing, obviously. Did he have an ego? Sure. His ego wasn't bigger than mine because that's how you have to be as a player. Now, I'm not going to tell everybody that, because you're the third or fourth receiver and you can't have this ego and you're not supposed to be, but you have to be all of those things. You just have to be willing to, I guess you can say, hide it, if you will. You got to be willing to play with all the other kids in the sandbox in the NFL, I was always a teammate. I always rooted for my teammates. I helped teammates as much as possible. And that's that correlation in life. So that was never a thing for me. I can get along with anybody. Now, at the same time, is there going to be a moment where I want what they have? Of course. But to me, that goes through, that mindset is through one ear and out the other type of deal. And an example of that was when I left the Vikings. So we go on these free agent visits where you visit teams, right? So I went to, I think it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Then I went to the Miami Dolphins. Then I went to the New York Jets, right? So the Jets put a deal on the table. And I remember I'm leaving the facility at like 6, 7 in the evening. My agent calls me at like 8 before my flight takes off. And he's like, the Jets want to put a deal on the table. If you want to go back and sign this deal, here's the nut and all that. And I was like, okay. And I was like, tomorrow we're going to the New England Patriots, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, you can either go back to the Jets and sign this or go to the Patriots tomorrow. So at that 8 o'clock, 8:30, whatever time, I was like, deal's on the table. I love New York. Let's do it. Go back and sign the deal with New York. The next day, that visit to the New England Patriots, of course, I never made, right? So we, through, of course, the off season, we get to our 3rd or 4th game of the year. The New York Jets are playing the New England Patriots. So first quarter, second quarter, Mo linebacker knocks out the quarterback, which at the time was Drew Bledsoe. And in comes this scrawny dude named Tom Brady. So, of course, the rest is history. Now, would I have been playing with Tom Brady and had a better career? Possibly. Could I have also went to New England and been a Super Bowl MVP with Tom Brady? Possibly. I could have also been hit by a bus in New England. Possibly. So I never think of those other scenarios. It's just that's not how it happened. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. So everybody in this locker room who might have had these catches here, getting paid this much over here, nobody knows the final outcome. Be happy with the race that you're running, and everything's going to end up fine unless those 3 things, dead in hospital, happen. You made the right decision. And so to me, I made the right decision. And it was a great time in New York. It was a learning experience in New York. But like, that's the story of the what if scenario if I would have won.
Yeah. So a lot of times we'll talk about the dual screens, that what you give attention to is releasing neurochemicals, and those thoughts that you entertain feel true. And now we project and we perceive it everywhere. So the more that we spend time being jealous and then projecting that others are jealous and I'm feeling othered and on the outside, the more likely you're going to do nonverbals that will create that outcome, and people are going to treat you a certain kind of way. But I'm hearing in your story, I'm cheerleading others. I'm there for them. I'm a good sport. I have the thoughts. I'm human, just like everybody else, but I'm redirecting from that screen of toxicity, and I'm going back to the vision of where I'm going. And I want to be the kind of teammate or coworker or family member or whatever it might be that celebrates others. And as you sow that into relationship, you're more likely to harvest that. So it sounds like that really worked for you, of taking your thoughts captive and then redirecting back to what's healthy, even as you're a normal human.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give those things energy. Like you said, it's where your eyes go is where the car goes, right? Like, you can't. give negative stuff energy, you're going to be in that negative space. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
And again, I just refuse to have those type of conversations, refuse to have those type of relationships. Not going to happen on my watch here.
Yeah.
It's like you have to know that going in. And that's kind of just, I feel about, again, during playing ball, of course, but now as an adult and knowing a lot more nowadays, I definitely feel like that now, because again, if you're going to give negative stuff energy, you're just going to continue to attract negative energy. And I remember I always like to leave the locked door or unlocked door scenario, right? The people who sit there and lock their car 8 times and 10 times, and leave the house and lock the door and check it and lock the door. Those people's house, the one time they don't lock their door, it gets broken into. A lot of times I just leave my door here and I'll leave because I'm just not worried about it. I'm not giving it energy. So to me, it's not going to happen anyway. Now, people, you shouldn't do, I know you shouldn't, but energy. It's like, that's just how it's going to be. So I've seen even more about the people who lock their door all the time. Then that one time in 20 years, they leave it unlocked and they get robbed. So that's, I see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're avoiding regret. And how are you staying away from toxic people? Because I was hearing you say, the implied is, hey, I surround myself intentionally with certain kinds of people.
Yes.
And when you get to a level of success, there's a lot of people who want to get around you because they're kind of stepping that ladder and hoping to use you. How did you discern who to keep in your inner circle versus who to keep in kind of that periphery space?
I still have my 3 best friends from high school.
Nice.
Again, Banks and Bree and Terry. So I know what real is. And if it doesn't fall in line with that, it's going to be hard to get into my circle, right? Of course, my ball playing buddies, again, T.O., Moss, Fitz, like those are really close friends of mine who I've shared different life situations with. So they're also there. Of course, a couple college buddies as well. But if you don't really fit into one of those like characteristics that those friends of mine have already, then it's probably hard for you to just get in with my circle. I'd rather not have you there. A good friend of mine now, Mitch Richmond. We do so many things together that are nonverbal. And to me, it's like, that's how I understand friendship. Or people talk about what they're going to do and not going to, like, that to me is closer to toxic energy than not. So it's like, if I see that coming from a mile away, which I do now, because I've seen so many people, I just kind of, I run the other way. I don't walk the other way. I run the other way because I have no interest in it. I don't have time for it. And at the end of the day, is it going to help everybody in my circle become better and help myself become better? If it's not, then like I said, I don't really have time for it. I just don't give it energy.
Yeah. And I like Danny Silk's work on creating your inner circle, like literally creating a circle, writing in who are those key people that I trust with my life. And then the outer circle of people that are like, they're allowed around me, but I'm not sharing the contents of my heart. We can't let everybody into our inner space. And then you have kind of that outer periphery. They're welcome to the barbecue, but they're not coming when, life is hard or I need advice or mentorship. Yeah. And unfortunately, without realizing it, many of us care too much what the crowd thinks. And we take for granted the people that should be in the inner circle, the mentors, the best friends, the spouse, the people that have stood next to you. But all of a sudden, fame and notoriety and being in the right circles, and people get really slick. And all of a sudden, without realizing it, we're giving too much attention to that outer circle and neglecting our inner circle. So for you, what helped you prioritize?
Yeah, I remember there was a 10 years ago, I was dating a young lady and she brought her friends, like a double date scenario. And I remember her friend, the girl at the table, she asked me, so what's your 5-year plan? Oh, and I was like, I don't even know you. I mean, not in a disrespectful way. I'm like, there's no way I would sit here and just tell a stranger who might go gossip my information on what my dreams and aspirations are. It's just me. Other people look at that and say it's no big deal. to me, that was everything. And
Mm.
that's just an example of me protecting my energy. Like I refuse to just talk about my dreams and aspirations, because I think that you're not protecting it if you're doing that. And number one. Number two, what I want to do with my life sounds crazy to 99% of the people out there anyway. It's like, there's no way you're going to be able to do all that. You're correct. And that's why I'm just going to try to go do it on my own. That's why I don't need to share it with you. But the people who love me and understand me, like, they get that.
Yeah. My interview right before you was a petite white female who wanted to be a CIA agent in the Middle East.
Love it. Love it.
About everything that would disqualify, and everyone told her that is not possible.
Yes, love it.
The best agent in the CIA in the Middle East as a female. Yes, we have to be careful to not let the crowd and their armchair quarterback input into our lives mean anything. Go after it.
Means nothing. And then somebody says you can't do it, really means that they can't do it.
Yeah.
So
that's all. They're living with their own disappointment, and they want to bring you down so they don't feel so bad by comparison.
Yeah, facts.
Okay, so you get injured while playing for Raiders, is that right?
Yep, I separated my shoulder, yeah.
Okay, and so a lot of people that would be just crushing. And you corrected me at the beginning wisely. You're like, there's no comeback. I never left. Yeah. So what did that look like for you? I know you did a short part in Amsterdam, but you've also done a huge pivot in general. How did you navigate that?
I think at the moment, the pivot into the entertainment space was more off of feel and gut instinct more than anything else. Because growing up, I didn't even go to movies, like we probably went to maybe 3 or 4 movies before I turned 18, and I just remember the feeling I had when I ran out of my first NFL game. Mm-hmm. The only other time I had that feeling is when I went to a movie premiere, and I remember it was Bad Boys 2 movie premiere. And the theater goes black, right? The sound comes on and the crowd starts screaming. And I think they had a shot. I think Will comes on the first or something like that. And I remember that was the feeling I had when I ran out the tunnel. That's when I said, you know what? I got to do this. I don't know what it was at the time, but I had to do something in this. And that was the standard at that one moment of me saying, I'm going to go do something. And I don't care what anybody tells me. I have to go do it. And I have to go at least try my hardest. And that was it for me for the entertainment. Like, there's nothing else. I grew up watching Spielberg, and like E.T. made me cry. Like, that was cool and all that back then, but there was nothing that made me feel a certain way except that one moment. And I remember that was the exact same feeling. And that was probably the only 2 times in my life I've had that feeling. And so that was my gut of saying, there's something out there that wants me to do this. So that's why I tried it. And I decided when I retired, my agent was Dwayne Martin, who was in the business, married to Tisha Campbell at the time. So I was around it. I got to see it, feel it, touch it. But then I had to take 2 to 5 years to really learn what the business was like. And that's when I just pretty much started over in my life. And everybody was like, well, when you retire, when I left the Jags and I was in New York for a couple months, and I know people like, just go to Hawaii for 6 months and relax, and you're figure it out, or go to Florida and relax. There's no sitting around relaxing to me. I wanted to indulge myself or engulf myself in another hobby, if you will, or another business, if you will. And it went into that energy went into the entertainment business. And I came out to LA, and any type of agent or I guess manager, writer, director, producer, anybody who had 1 cent of information in the entertainment business, I was like, let me take you to Starbucks. Let me take you to lunch. Let me take you to dinner. And I just started gathering information. And from there, it was just like, okay, I get a little bit of bits and pieces here. And then for some odd reason, the words out of my mouth were, let's go make a movie. I don't know why I said that. So, but when I said it, it had to get done. Get done, and the more I said it, the more people said you can't do that. So the more I was like, I have to do it. I ended up running into my business partners till today, Brad Furman, We ended up doing a movie, The Take, with John Leguizamo, Tyrese, Rosie Perez, Bobby Cannavale. And it ended up going, like I said, it was a theatrical release. We got reward for it. Rosie Perez was up for an Independent Spirit Award for it. I think we lost to Penelope Cruz that year, but it was the A to Z for me, right? Started something, finished it, and like, okay, that's awesome. Now let's go, try to figure out how the heck that just happened, because I don't know how it happened. But like, that's the great thing about the business. And now, of course, fast forward to 2023, it's all content and creation, right? That's kind of what we were doing back then. Obviously, taking a script, which is nothing, and then making a movie with it. But for the most part, back then, it's just like I didn't know that was the process, and I just end up going through the process, even though people said it's impossible and don't do it. Like, no, just go do it. You'll, like I said, once you say something, like, the world gets out of your way. Like, you just have to be willing to go the obstacle here, get over that, the obstacle here, get over that. But for the most part, you have to be willing to do the work. And then, of course, the things usually work out on your behalf.
That's so good. I love that you were at pinnacle in one season and willing to start at the bottom. You didn't expect and have entitlement going into a new mountain of influence, but willing to get mentorship, ask for help, be curious, be hungry, hustle, do what you needed to do to learn this new sphere and not expect it to be handed to you. And by putting in that work and diligence and then having the vision, writing the vision, making it plain so you can run with it, now you're watching legs to those dreams. And what's been the most fun part about this new chapter?
Still the uncertainty. That's the best part about it, because you just wake up and you don't know. And there was always, when I was playing, like before every game, there was like a 5-second period where I was like, if I go do something crazy today, the world will see it, right? If I go score, this never happened in any game. If I go score 10 touchdowns today, the world will be amazed at this. And it was just that little bit of certainty that made me like, hey, let's go find out. Never happened, of course, right? And I feel that same way about the entertainment business. Like, if I just maybe go create something a little bit, something nobody's ever heard of, thought of, or put it in a different perspective, nobody's ever thought of, that maybe this movie might do $1 billion one day. Probably won't, but let's go find out. So that's kind of, it's the uncertainty that I really enjoy of the creation that does not exist tomorrow. I'm going to create it tomorrow. And that's really, I guess, the burning desire that I have.
That's so good. And I can hear even that professional athlete mindset of almost like if you're, you're a corner, what was it?
Wide receiver. We can edit that all, don't worry about it.
So as a wide receiver, you're expecting the obstacles. You're not surprised. You're not overwhelmed. You're not taken back thinking, oh gosh, maybe I'm in the wrong field. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So many people go forward and tell an obstacle and they think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But I love that moment where you said something came alive. We call that a treasure hunt. That it's like something is already written and coded inside of you. And there's moments, even you as you're listening right now, think back in your life, these moments, and they may seem totally random or impossible. It could be NASA and you're 50 now, but it's something that you felt alive in it. And so the obstacle, the challenge, expect it to come. And so I'm picturing like this huddle of guys attacking him. And he's like, okay, how do I pivot? How do I move around and do that in a new industry? So for those that are listening, you have homework. Write the vision, make it plain, have a treasure, and look back in your life and say, what are the clues? It's not always that specific thing, but it's something about that. It's like your inner man is just coming alive and you're in your sweet spot. There is something you're designed to do on this earth, and it may be more than one. So we're excited to be with Hatch today. What is your next film, your project, acting? What is your next thing that we can be excited for?
I'll add on to what you just finished with before I start that. A term that I like to use: the obstacle is the way. That is the way. And it's like if you're, I guess what people fail to realize is when it's easy, it's the wrong path. anybody can just go skip along the road. Okay, but if there's obstacles in that road, that's probably where you want to be going. But for the most part, again, I know we have Get Your Popcorn Ready podcast with myself and T.O. That airs on Fubo television or streaming on Fubo TV. That's on weekly right now. We have a great time doing that, just having some fun, talking to athletes and entertainers about how they pivot in their transitions on from maybe a comedian to an actor, an athlete, to someone, a TV personality. So we kind of get into the ask on how they got there and then how did they pivot. We go from like a Michael Strahan to Cedric the Entertainer to Ice Cube, then to Tyreek Hill. So Allison Felix. So we've kind of just go around the realm of talking about the same thing about their transition, but total different perspectives, because athletes and entertainers all have pretty much the same story as any CEO would have at a Yahoo or Google. Like once you leave Google or once you leave Yahoo or you leave Paramount or Sony Studios, it's the same feeling as a special teams player that played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do I do now? And life is not going to sit around and wait for you to say, hey, well, maybe this. You better go out and just go do something and know that it's not going to be easy and go knock down all those obstacles to get through. But obviously, you've made it once already. So you have the tools in your toolbox to do it again. But the world will reward you only if you try just as hard. You can sit back and say, I deserve this because I did this a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I think that's where a lot of NFL athletes or retired athletes get caught up. They were superstars or Pro Bowlers or jersey sales, whatever, and then they go home and wait for the phone to call, the phone to ring. The phone's not going to ring. But if you pick up the phone, you pretty much have everything at your fingertips. And I heard Kerry Washington say something about this the other day. Love the way she put it. I'm probably not going to do it as eloquently as her, but she was like, it's the bus is the opportunity. If you're running and to catch the bus, you'll always catch your bus. If you don't catch that bus, it just wasn't your bus. But if you're walking and not praying and hoping to catch the bus, you're never going to catch the bus. And only the least character type of people say, oh, that bus left me. Bus didn't leave you. You weren't running and praying. There's a difference between those two types of characters in the world. If you're running and praying for that bus, you're going to always catch the bus.
So inspiring. Thank you so much. This has been so fun. And we hope that everyone listening is inspired and now equipped to chase after that treasure. When your heart leaps, pay attention to it and then work your butt off. All right, we'll see you later. Bye, guys. See you in the next episode.